Let's get right into it. Welcome to This Explainer, where we're unpacking a silent, ongoing war happening right outside and inside your house. We're talking about how the specific geography around your home is literally waging war on your heating and cooling systems, and more importantly, what that invisible battle means for your wallet. If you've ever pulled your hair out wondering why your AC or furnace decides to just give up the ghost on the absolute hottest or coldest day of the year, well, you're in exactly the right place. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start with the Lake Washington microclimate. Then we'll get into the anatomy of a breakdown, cover the emergency repair process, and finally, we'll break down the economics of HVAC. All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the Lake Washington microclimate. We're going to see how a seemingly gorgeous environment can actually be a total nightmare for your household appliances. We're pulling our data today from the local experts over at Peak HVAC Seattle, who operate right in Kirkland, Washington. Now, Kirkland sits perfectly nestled between Lake Washington and downtown Seattle, and that geography, it creates a very specific, super humid microclimate. Imagine morning fog rolling off the lake. It looks beautiful, right? But it brings with it this relentless moisture that just goes to work rapidly corroding your outdoor condenser units. And it gets worse. That same dampness sneaks its way inside, practically inviting mold to grow directly inside your home's ductwork. It's just a constant silent stressor on your machinery. And you know, this perfectly exposes the trap of the Pacific Northwest whole mild reputation. Homeowners constantly skip maintenance because, well, they assume the weather is pretty gentle. But the reality on the ground is actually really harsh. Summer heat waves still absolutely cook at 85 to 95 degrees. And that high humidity? It forces air conditioners to run these extended, grueling cycles just to wring the moisture out of the air. Then flip to winter. The temperature frequently drops below freezing, which is immediately followed by rapid thaws. That constant expanding and contracting physically cracks your condensate lines right open. Moving on to Section 2, anatomy of a breakdown. Look, when these environmental stresses build up, failure isn't just possible, it's inevitable. So let's put on our detective hats for a second. The technicians out there at Peak HVAC regularly run into a very specific pattern of failures. I like to call these the 4 horsemen of HVAC death. First up, you've got seized compressors, which is caused by that brutal, humid summer overwork we just talked about. Second, cracked heat exchangers from thermal stress. Third, you've got refrigerant leaks. This is where moisture and salt air literally eat away at the copper lines until tiny pinhole leaks form. And finally, number 4, clogged drains. That's where algae and mold just completely choke the condensate lines, which, as you can guess, leads to major water damage. Now, the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is the severity of these failures. We aren't just talking about, oh, I'm a little sweaty today. No. Take a dirty air filter, for example. It causes your furnace to short cycle. That constant clicking on and off, it creates massive thermal stress that can actually crack the metal heat exchanger right down the middle. And once that metal fatigue creates a crack, deadly carbon monoxide can start leaking directly into your home's air supply. At that point, it's an immediate, life-threatening emergency. And no, you can't just patch it up. The system is strictly non-repairable. But you know what's really fascinating? How our own behavior speeds up these breakdowns. It all boils down to something called the 3-minute rule. See, when you shut off your air conditioner, the internal refrigerant pressure needs a little bit of time to equalize. If you restart it too quickly, you are forcing that compressor to work against extreme high pressure. It's crazy, but homeowners actually cause their own compressor failures all the time by manually flipping their AC on and off rapidly, thinking they're saving a few bucks on energy. Instead, they totally ignore this rule and end up completely destroying the compressor. And guys, that's a mistake that costs anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 to fix. Seriously, just let your thermostat do the thinking. Okay, Section 3, the emergency repair process. Let's say the worst happens. What exactly goes down when you wake up freezing at 2 a.m. with a completely dead system? Well, because HVAC failures definitely do not care about normal business hours, local providers like Peak HVAC use a highly structured 24/7 emergency response protocol. Step 1, dispatching a fully stocked truck within 60 minutes. Step 2 is getting in there, identifying the root cause, and handing you upfront, transparent pricing before a single wrench is turned. So no surprise upsells. And finally, Step 3, which is super crucial, post-repair load testing. They actually measure temperatures, airflow, and pressure to verify that the fix is really going to hold up once normal operating conditions kick back in. Which brings us to our final stop, Section 4, the economics of HVAC. let's dig into the really hidden financial decisions behind repairing or replacing this massive household infrastructure. When should I replace my HVAC system, right? That is undoubtedly the single most stressful question any homeowner faces during a system outage. You've had a tech standing in your hallway, your family is miserable, and you have to make a major financial decision on the spot. But fortunately, there's actually a super simple mathematical formula you can use to solve this logically, completely taking the emotion out of the equation. The secret sauce here is the $5,000 rule. This is a brilliant little insider financial strategy used by technicians to help make sure you aren't just throwing good money at dying equipment. Here's exactly how the math plays out. You take the quoted cost of the repair and you multiply it by the age of the system in years. If that grand total is greater than $5,000, replacement almost always makes better financial sense. Okay, let's do a quick example. Say you've got a 15-year-old furnace and the tech quotes you a $400 repair. Well, 15 multiplied by 400 equals $6,000. Because $6,000 is greater than our magic $5,000 number, you've crossed the threshold. At that point, biting the bullet and investing in a new energy-efficient system is, hands down, the smarter play. So, okay, let's say you run the math and you hit that replacement threshold. You need to know exactly what kind of numbers you're really looking at for a total overhaul. Like, what is the real damage to your wallet going to be here? Just to ground this in some stark reality, complete standard installations are typically going to run you anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000. But if you've got a larger, say, 2,000 square foot home that needs upgrades, that number can easily push up to $18,000. And honestly, the final cost is heavily dependent on factors dictated by that tricky microclimate we discussed earlier. If your home needs complex ductwork modifications or, adding whole home dehumidifiers just to battle that salty marine air, you're definitely going to be looking at the higher end of that spectrum. Now, to soften that massive financial blow, there is a pretty great silver lining. The Inflation Reduction Act actually offers up to $2,000 in federal tax credits through 2032. If you invest in a high-efficiency system, we're talking heat pumps and central air units with a qualifying SEER 2 rating, which is basically just the modern standard for energy efficiency, you can claim those credits. So stepping up to the better technology actually pays you back twice, first through those immediate tax benefits, and then again every single month through significantly lower utility bills. It's a win-win. Still, when you're staring down the barrel of a $15,000 bill, it's totally natural that a lot of homeowners immediately turn to big box warehouse stores looking for a discount. But is taking that big box route actually a better deal when we are talking about permanent home infrastructure? Let's really weigh these options for a second. Big box stores certainly do provide an extended warranty and an extra layer of corporate customer service, but they act entirely as a middleman. They just contract the work out, and they usually lock you into a single brand. Plus, you have zero say in selecting the specific installer who shows up at your door. On the flip side, going with a local contractor provides direct accountability. You get your choice of brands, way faster emergency response, and, most crucially, specialized knowledge of your area's unique microclimate and building codes. And this really drives home our core theme for today. Sure, a seemingly cheaper, bundled price at a warehouse store might work perfectly fine for a simple, straightforward swap. But if you live in a place like Kirkland, battling that constant marine air, your specific property might require upgraded drain pans or corrosion-resistant fittings, maybe custom ductwork or even multi-zone system modifications. The thing is, those cookie-cutter big-box programs often completely lack the flexibility you actually need to execute those custom solutions correctly. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want you to do me a favor. Just take a look out the window. Think about the humidity out there, those freeze-thaw cycles, the morning fog. Ask yourself, is your local microclimate silently destroying your home's most expensive machinery right now? And honestly, more importantly, do you have your $5,000 rule calculation ready to go for when the elements finally win? Because they will. Knowledge is absolutely your best defense against the hidden economics of homeownership. Keep learning, stay prepared, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.